For more than 20 years, journalist and author Christopher Hitchens has been one of the most outspoken critics of American foreign policy and culture. His work has taken on such ironic and iconic figures as Bill Clinton, Henry Kissinger, and Mother Teresa. In his new book, Letters to a Young Contrarian, he offers counsel to a new generation of would-be radicals about the importance of opposition and debate. He has just returned from Pakistan, where he's been covering the war against the Taliban. I am pleased to have him on this program and to talk about this book, but first about Afghanistan and other issues. Welcome.
Nice to be back, Johnny.
Nice to see you. I've got lots of things to talk about. First of all, tell me what you give me a sense of impressions from Afghanistan, when you were there, what you saw, what you think of this war.
Well, I went to the Afghan border. The Pakistanis won't let you cross, but I could get to Peshawar, which is, it's an Afghan town, in fact. It's ringed by Afghan refugee camps. You're in Afghanistan, in effect, when you've got to Peshawar, and many Pashtuns don't really recognize that border anyway, never did. It's a British border, like so many partition borders. But I also went to the other border, the other frontier of Kashmir, where India and Pakistan have a direct standoff, and where Osama bin Laden has announced several times that Kashmir is the third great holy war after Palestine and Iraq and Chechnya. He varies them a bit, but Kashmir is up to number 3 now, where I think our attention should be more directed, because I think there really will be a war there, and it's the one that we already know is most likely to go thermonuclear.
Right.
Or everything's in place for that, and has been for a while. If there's one good thing to come out of this nightmare, I think it will be a tremendous focusing of attention on an area where people have been very slack in their view of it. And while I'm on that point, I might add, I think Mr. bin Laden may unintentionally have done us all a favor, because he and his allies in the Taliban were, in a fair way, with a good chance, to take over Pakistan in a couple of years from now.
And with it, their nuclear
From within,
weapons.
with the whole arsenal, and with the military oligarchy. Yes, to Talibanize Pakistan. That was going on for a long time. Some of us in Washington were protesting about it. I signed a big petition against the Taliban and its maltreatment of women and its aggressive policies in Washington in June, which we circulated. Couldn't get any attention for it then. I'm proud to have done it. I don't claim any particular prescience for it. Anyone could have seen. And of course I had no idea how bad it would get or how fast. But by doing this amazing, horrifying, grand opera, evil thing in New York and Washington and Pennsylvania, Mr. bin Laden, who really is a fanatic, has spoiled the chances of his less fanatical supporters of taking over Pakistan. That won't happen now.
What do you think will be the end result?
Well, it won't be an end result. It will be a long,
ongoing result.
A long, tough contest in which we know by elimination certain things. Secular civil society can't be defeated by this. It can't. We are stronger in every way than they are.
Right. And defeat is unacceptable, period.
Defeat is not thinkable either, but it's also not feasible.
Right.
We're stronger in every sense of that term. Our territory can't be occupied by these people or conquered, nor can our core values be challenged by them. And we shouldn't call these our values, because they're values that occur in all societies, but the Muslims of the world will look at bin Laden. He says, "Come to my cave." Even if they wanted to go, they can't. And they'll start to think, wait a minute, when did he proclaim himself God's anointed? How exactly did this come about? As long as there's a certain amount of fortitude.
Yeah, I know. I just saw Amr Musa yesterday said, who was a guest on the show recently, said, you know, Mr. bin Laden doesn't speak for Arabs or Muslims.
No, I was impressed to see that, and there'll be more people saying so, and more annoyance at exactly how did this guy choose himself. You look at his deputy, the video, Mr. Gaith.
Right.
The video, he tells Muslims living in Europe and America, don't live in high-rise buildings, don't take planes. What are they supposed to think? How dare he talk to them like that?
Yeah.
I would like to make a propaganda film of Muslims in England and Germany and America taking planes happily and living in high-rise buildings and saying, excuse me, you can't tell me not to do that. And who are you anyway? So what I'm very against is the people who've been saying, oh, no, we should feel guilt at what we've done to the Muslim world. We brought this on ourselves. This is chickens coming home to roost. You kindly said I've made a lot of criticisms of American foreign policy. I'd hope to be in the top 10 of such critics. I'm glad. If I was found in the top 10, I hope I came by it honestly, but this is quite different. Yeah. Very different. And in my book, which you kindly also mentioned, I say that the great struggle is between secular society, which we base ourselves on doubt, skepticism, free inquiry, separation of church and state, emancipation of women, believing there's no such thing as any concept of race. We're all human.
So between secular society and
that civilization begins where that starts.
Right.
See, what you have to leave behind is blind faith, tribalism, clan and desert culture. And that's every society's had to go through that evolution, one form or another.
Okay, let me come back to my question, and we'll spread it out larger. One, happened to Bin Laden in your judgment. I mean, does he get out of Afghanistan? Is it irrelevant? How do we treat all the sort of obvious thoughts that come into that? Number one,
yes,
if
I
you
don't
kill
know
him,
any
there
more.
are thousands of others.
Charlie, listen, you can ask me, but I don't. You know I know no more about that than anyone else, really. I mean, I have a view. I think he could die at any minute, and we wouldn't know we killed him.
Right.
And then, thus, it could become a mysterious disappearance.
Right.
But that might lead people to think he'd been assumed into heaven. Who knows? Mm. He could be captured, which I would prefer, and taken to The Hague, which I would prefer. And I also wish the United States government had long ago signed the War Crimes and Crimes Against Humanity Treaty, and would have a place already to take him. Now, if they do it now, it'll look like retrospective justice. That's a pity.
Yeah.
But the ideal would be to make him answer in public and make him look at videos of what he's done and what he's said, and have the best lawyer we can find for him, and go through it in that way. I'm afraid that you can't do that with all members of his network all the time, because some people are engaged in trying to do horrific death squad things and would have to be, I'm afraid, found and put down. But I think there should be a grand confrontation where he would not be judged by the sort of court that he prefers, which would put someone to death by stoning the same day as the evidence was
of
heard.
course, right. Or beheading.
Or worse, actually.
Or worse, yeah.
In Afghanistan, worse.
What
and
is
for
it?
women, unbelievably
What
worse.
is it? What's worse in Afghanistan?
Well, my friend Ahmed Rashid, whose brilliant book on the Taliban,
Who frequently reports
a
on
great
this program, as
comrade
you
of
know.
mine,
Yeah.
and who I saw in Islamabad. He has a passage in his book. It's very good. He says the Taliban have spent ages deciding how should you execute a homosexual. Should it be by burying him in a pile of rocks and then driving a tank over the rocks? Should it be by collapsing a wall on top of him? Because the Quran doesn't actually have specific punishments for sodomy. But the Taliban, which is a very sexually twisted organization, has spent ages trying to think of the most elaborate punishments for it. It's sick. It's interesting. It's worth noticing. Sexual repression is at the bottom of some of this, I think.
I've seen lots of
so
speculation
very
about
bad,
that.
very bad to be gay in Afghanistan, let's say. But to be a woman, a member of the Rawa group, say, with which I'm proud to be friendly, to be caught now trying to do anything political under your burqa, I mean, I don't want to think what would happen to a woman captured.
In terms of the execution.
No, and I think it's a great disgrace, by the way, the United States government doesn't invite and insist that these women are invited and their groups are invited to these supposed broad-based government meetings, which seem to be dominated by old men in turbans who represent feudal, clan, or royalist groups.
Hawk was hanged.
We hope. I mean, but hanging can be a very slow process in Afghanistan. What the Taliban used to do was tie you to the muzzle of a tank by a rope and then slowly raise the muzzle. That's not exactly hanging. That's more like being
Suffocating.
or strangled, or it's torture. It's,
Right.
it's a barbaric death using a sort of modern technology.
Since you come down clearly on the side of the United States and the coalition partners in this war, with particular praise for Tony Blair, and noting that there's been real opposition to the war of a kind in Britain,
Yes.
and in other parts of Europe as well as in Asia. Why is it you think some of your friends are engaged in this sort of literary debate with you about your support of the war?
Well, I really think it is because some people can't see a new situation when it hits them. Frankly, think that if I read, as I did, the work of, say, Professor Chomsky, some of whose work in the past I've much admired, what he was basically saying is, oh, well, this is nothing new. It reminds me of another atrocity that the United States once committed in another country.
Sudan.
Yeah, in Sudan, in his case.
Right.
I thought, that's extraordinary. I thought the comparison was wrong morally. Yeah. But I also thought it was very lazy intellectually. It was as if to say, I already have my worldview, thanks all the same. Please don't disturb it. I was fine the way I was. I'm just... Let me assimilate this to that, and then we'll move on. And I can go on saying what I was going to say in the first place. I find that boring and mediocre, because there's no doubt this is a new situation. It's no doubt this is a just war. There's a civil war in the Muslim world, an assault on Muslim civilization from the extreme right. The extreme right take the war to the West to try and win their war in the Muslim world.
Right, exactly.
That's a new situation, and it's really challenging. But Chomsky just shrug it off as contemptible. Then